How to human. What does it even mean to be human? What is our purpose? What do we do while we're here? How do we carry ourselves? These are all questions that are easily answered by a lot of people. But all of those answers are complete bullshit, nonsense, in my opinion. It's very subjective as to the meaning of life and the purpose of life. Religions have claimed the ownership of reality for, centuries, and so have atheists, so have cosmologists, so have scientists. Everybody who has an opinion on the meaning of life, whether it's purposeful or whether there's any meaning, rhyme, or reason to it, whether we're here for a purpose, whether we're created by a god, or whether we just are gods, or whether we've evolved as an unfolding like a flower, more of my belief of kind of a pantheism, that the universe itself is conscious. None of these things can be proven. None of it matters. I mean, it all matters to us as people. We want to have answers. But because of our lack of answers, that's why people shake their fist at the sky, right? Blaming an invisible entity for our problems and then praising that entity when things go well. It's the best we can do. I'm not a religious person myself, but I understand why people are. But the bigger question here, or the question here is, what does it mean to be human? How do you human in the very basic terms? Not what worships, should you go to, or what specific clothes should you wear, but rather, what are the bare essentials besides food, water, shelter, and companionship, which is an essential part of a good, healthy psyche. And I don't mean marriage or, just having people in your life. We are social creatures. Therefore, part of being a social creature means that you need some sort of connection with other beings or animals, whatever it might be. So I think that as far as our behaviors, let's say, the only things that really matter are very simple, should be laid out simply. Not the 10 Commandments, but something kind of like that. And in the sense that don't be a jerk, don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat people, Mind your own effing business is basically the whole point of it. Don't put other people through pain so you can gain something. But then there's part of us that says, what if that person deserves it? What if it's somebody who's taken advantage of the labor of the labor force, and the labor force takes their power back, or takes some funds out of the company to pay them for money that they weren't paid. There's taking something that isn't yours to reimburse yourself for your losses. Or if you live in an area where you have to steal bread just to survive, because of the local policies, and your leaders are living lavishly, which is a very common thing around the world. Maybe you do have rights to take from others, but these are very subtle, and difficult discussions. There's a lot of nuance in human behavior. I once asked a guy who said that thou shalt not kill. We were talking about, basically, I don't recall, it was about 8 years ago on YouTube. And I said, well, there are instances where you might have to harm someone or kill someone. And he said, I never would. I leave that, that's up to God. So I said, let's take a hypothetical situation. Someone breaks into your home. They have a weapon, and you know for a fact they're going to go and kill your wife and your daughter. Would you shoot them to protect your family? And the guy had the nerve to say, no, that's in God's hands. That's ignorance, obviously. And we know that a person in that situation would never act like they claim they would act. Everyone is pious and proper until they are not pious and proper. And a good example of that would be to see how quickly a society descends into chaos once, the power goes out or people lose access to food. How quickly, civil, kind neighbors can turn into monsters when they're just trying to get by. Our psyche gets in the way of our functionality as whatever our species needs to do. What I mean by that is, those primates within, that are maybe closely related to us, they have their troops, they're groups of apes and monkeys that live certain ways. There are certain hierarchies built into the systems, and they don't have to overthink it. They are just at that point where they know what they need to do. We humans overthink everything, and this is why we're obsessed with progress. Progress with no end in sight. And that often comes down to the sunk cost fallacy, which actually I just mentioned in a previous video. It means that you've invested so much time in something, there's no going back. And people are afraid to look at the way that we humans are living right now and say, maybe we could do better. It's not that the individuals or that the cultures and various societies don't want change. It's that those who have the power don't want change. They want to continue on a system where the serfs work in the fields, where you're forced, to pay a third of your income to a federal government that squanders it overseas in pointless wars. It's a strange time to be alive, but it's really no different, other than the technology, than any other time in history. Even though we say we've moved past having kings, we haven't. We haven't moved past royalty. Even our leaders in the West still believe that they're divinely chosen. I remember when George Bush Jr. talked about how he was chosen by God. It just makes me want to vomit. But in a way, he's right? Because if God is everything, then he was chosen by the people. The people represent the whole. It's a complicated topic. I don't know what the answer is. But as far as being a human, what is our purpose is maybe not as important as what kind of purpose can we create for ourselves. And nihilism tells people that there is no meaning to life. And moving beyond that means, I have a blank slate to work with. And then you figure out in your heart what really matters to you. Family, friends, experiences. You don't remember sitting at home watching a movie, but you do remember going to that park last week or going on a camping trip last year. I'm sure the last time you probably went out into the woods or to a park, you probably remember that in your mind right now, just thinking about it. But the rest of our life just kind of passes us by. So we're always yearning for this excitement. But it doesn't have to be exciting in the way that society wants it to be. We want new buildings. We want taller buildings. We want, more cities and more technology. And I think that people are finally looking down at their phones and saying, maybe this isn't what we want. Maybe we're on the wrong track. I think that people are waking up to that reality. That we're all trapped in a world of addiction and superstition and fear, that we can overcome it as individuals if we choose to. So, how do you human? Well, you do the best you can. It's really the only answer to it. You do the best you can, and you live for yourself, first and foremost. The most important thing, that we live for ourselves, and we're honest and true to our own passions and desires. And I believe that deep down inside, we know when we're doing well and when we're not. So it would be kind of following the gut, but without letting it pull us down. Thoughts welcome. That's all I got. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for coming, and thank you to all my patrons, my subscribers. If you want to support the channel, visit me on Patreon. It's the only way I get funds since I don't advertise, even though this video is brought to you by Nature.